Everybody. It is June 1st, 2025, and I have not planned on doing a video today, but in light of the news coming out of Russia today, I thought one was warranted. The Ukrainians have just successfully executed Operation Spider Web, as they call it. What they basically did was they got a bunch of shipping containers near 5 Russian air bases, including one in Siberia. The containers opened up and they released drone swarms. The swarms then took out 41 Russian aircraft, mostly strategic bombers, including several of their Tu-95 bombers. Now, if you look at the Tu-95 bomber, it's going to look a lot like a B-29 because it was reversed engineered from captured American B-29s from the end of World War II. Roughly speaking, the Russians lost 2 billion-ish or so worth of aircraft. It should be noted, if you're thinking, well, Russia will just build new ones. No, they won't. Many of the aircraft destroyed are out of production, and the Russian aviation industry is no longer capable of producing these aircraft. So the planes that were lost will, at least several of them, will never be replaced, ever. Several of the bombers that were destroyed were nuclear capable, meaning they were the ones that Russia could actually use to deliver nuclear payloads against targets. So Russia's strategic position is now weakened. So overall, this is an incredible victory for Ukraine. It is an absolute humiliation for Russia. Putin has done an excellent job convincing Trump, Vance, and other people that Russia is absolutely winning the war in Ukraine and that they have this enormously powerful military machine and they can't be stopped. And Lord knows, you know, if you're Tim Pool or Ian Miles Chong or Tucker Carlson, you are been going right along with that. And any money you've gotten from the Russian government is totally incidental to your support for them, of course. And by the way, yes, I know I'm being flippant in saying that, but this is a major humiliation for Russia. In terms of will it affect the battlefield conditions in Ukraine? Sort of, a little bit. Russia has been engaged in a sustained bombing campaign against Ukrainian cities. They've been targeting apartment buildings, government buildings, really any big collection of big buildings that they can hit. You get a bunch of buildings close together. That way they can't miss. Some of the weaponry they've been using have been air-launched cruise missiles, which they use these bombers to deliver. So bomber flies in, drops the missile out of the bottom, and off it goes to hit the target. By and large, in terms of on the front line, the actual front line, this might have limited so this will have some impact on Russia's bombing campaign against Ukrainian cities. However, Russia is using a lot of drones, a lot of ground launch missiles, so it's limited as to how much impact it'll have there. What impact it will have as to the actual front line, Russia has been using their bomber fleets to deliver what are called glide bombs. They have these big, like 2,000-pound bombs, and they put this kit on it with like some wings and rockets and a little simple guidance system, so it's got some accuracy. It's not like a World War II bomb where you just drop it out of the bottom and, you know, aim as best you can and hope it hits there. It is a semi-guided bomb. But these are big. You start dropping a 2,000-pound bomb or a 3,000-pound bomb. You don't have to be super accurate to blow up a target with that because the explosion is so big. So again, this will have some impact on the front line, not a whole lot. Again, it'll have some impact on Russia's strategic bombing campaign against Ukrainian cities, not a whole lot. What it does do, however, like I said, it humiliates Russia. It costs Russia a lot of money. It also means Russia now has to pour resources into protecting air bases, including air bases in places like Siberia and the Arctic, because the Ukrainians have proven they can get to them. The Ukrainian strategy now, as best I can tell, they have largely given up the idea they're going to win the war in the traditional sense that they're going to launch an offensive and they're going to push the Russians out. What they're doing now is bleeding the Russians. They are just running up the damage bill as much as they can. This, in terms of advancing Ukraine's strategy to just make the cost of the war so high that the Russians eventually cry uncle and say, okay, we got to do a peace deal and we got to get out of this. This is absolutely how you do it. This is the latest in a string of highly successful operations like this. The Ukrainians just in the last few days assassinated one of the battlefield commanders from the siege of Mariupol in 2022. They blew up a supply train inside Russian-occupied Ukraine. You may remember there have been several very impressive strikes on Russian oil facilities and also on large Russian ammo depots. They blew up Russia's largest ammo depot last September, I believe. They blew up another huge depot several weeks ago. Literally blew up something like over 160,000 tons of Russian ammunition. I mean, huge volumes. So the Ukrainian strategy of just give the Russians a damage bill that is so big that the Russians crack, they are definitely advancing that strategy with today's strike. The other thing to know, and this is just cool, is the shipping containers they launched the drones out of self-destructed. They blew up on their own, which is some full-on Mission Impossible stuff going on here. So kudos to the Ukrainians. This is incredible what they have pulled off. This should be terrifying to armies all over the world because, for instance, Chinese cargo ships pass by all of America's carrier bases all the time. All you need, apparently, is if the Ukrainians can put this together, then the Japanese, the Chinese, the Americans, the Germans, I mean, any number of militaries around the world could figure out something like this. The Israelis, so this is something that should definitely be concerning and really shows us the extent to how much drone warfare is going to change everything we know about modern conflict. If you can get a shipping container on an 18-wheeler and get it within several miles of an airbase, you can blow up aircraft. That's just wild to think about. So huge win for Ukraine, huge embarrassment for Russia, huge financial loss for Russia. Not a big change on the front lines in Ukraine, but it will have some impact, and that impact will be good for the Ukrainians, bad for the Russians. As for Russia's continued strikes on Ukrainian cities, I expect they will continue. In fact, I expect they will intensify. The Russians will be angry and they will want to seek revenge on the Ukrainians. I welcome them attacking Ukraine city. We have a lot of historical precedent. The terror bombing of cities is completely militarily ineffective, and each one of these strikes cost the Russians millions of dollars. Their cheapo drones, the Shaheeds, are about $35,000 a pop. Their more expensive cruise missiles, like the Caliber and whatnot, are like 500 grand each. The Russians are spending many millions of dollars per week and sometimes millions of dollars per assault on these Ukrainian cities, for which they're getting almost nothing in return. And as one final note, the total government budget of Russia for everything, not defense, the whole budget, is in dollars about 350 billion, roughly 5% of the American budget. So if you want to get an idea, okay, Shahed drone costs the Russians 35,000. What would be the equivalent for the Americans? You would multiply that by about 20. So that would be like the Americans firing off a $700,000 drone. A $500,000 Russian caliber missile would cost the Americans the equivalent of about a $10 million missile. So again, this is a nation whose total government budget is only 5% of the size of ours, and they're spending millions of dollars a week, every week, trying to blow up Ukrainian apartment buildings. So as far as I'm concerned, let them. I'd much rather them spend the money on that than on something that would be useful to them on the battlefield. Okay, good job, Ukrainians, and I hope everyone has a good Sunday. Bye-bye.